A video today entitled Deep Flirting 101, or as a mentor and colleague of mine likes to call it, dancing in the moment. And I love that name, it's very apt because it is a dance that happens between a man and a woman who are attracted to each other. The flirting is full of motion, full of movement, and often the body is engaged with this dancing in the moment long before the minds actually figure out that the bodies just seem to like each other. So how does a man learn to flirt or deepen his flirting repertoire if he doesn't have one already, or if it's gone a little bit rusty with time, right? And this is a question that I ran into and I had to unpack for myself. Coming from British Western culture, it's very easy that the flirting tap can close off, and it takes a little bit of effort to open it up and allow the spirit of the lover to come back through. So there's no better place, I think, to begin your exploration of flirting, particularly this more embodied form of flirting, by watching the movie Don Juan de Marco. And this is the classic Don Juan film that came out in 1994. It stars Johnny Depp at his youthful, sincere prime, and he walks through the movie seducing every single woman that he runs into, old, young, beautiful. It doesn't really matter. He is the emanation and the incarnation of the pure archetype of the lover. And so what happens is, this all takes place in modern America. Don Juan ends up getting sectioned into a psychiatric hospital, and he works with Dr. Mickler, and this is, overweight and aging Marlon Brando, who is a maverick psychoanalyst. He is at the end of his career, about to retire, and he takes on Don Juan as his last case. And what you see over the course of the film is that this Dr. Mickler character, through ongoing exposure to the archetype of the lover, ends up imbibing the very spirit that Don Juan emanates. And yeah, spoiler alert, but what you see in the very last scene of the film is that it's not Don Juan's character arc that is interesting, but this aging, kind of dry, retiree Dr. Mickler goes on this arc of character transformation, and by the end of the film, he has embodied the spirit of the lover in a perfect way. He starts to outshine even Don Juan in the way that he seduces his wife and takes her down to the beach, and yeah, it's very, very inspiring and moving. And I love that film because certainly when I first watched it in my, I guess, early or mid-20s, I'm watching everything that Don Juan does, and I'm trying to pick apart his actions and almost learn what he does in a behavioral way. Like, if I could just imitate Don Juan's actions with women perfectly enough, then I could perform these behaviors and then get his results. It's behavioral coaching one-on-one, right? And so there are many turns of phrase he uses. He has this amazing routine where he's sat with a woman in the restaurant at the start of the film, and he grabs her hand as if he wants to kiss her on the back of the hand, and he does this thing with the two front fingers where he slowly kisses his way up her two front fingers until she parts and exposes this very tender flesh in between the knuckles, and he goes in to kiss there, which is the part of the woman's body that no man has ever given his attention to, like total euphemism. And it's this amazing routine. Like, you could watch it, you could learn it, you could do it on a girlfriend or a wife or a lover and see how she likes it. There's a lot of delightful stuff. But actually, when it comes to learning flirting and learning this dancing in the moment, it's much, much better to have a keener look at the Dr. Mickler's character transformation, because here's a guy who's dried up. And what he ends up doing is not, Don Juan, can you teach me? How do you do that in the restaurant? Or how do you approach a woman? Or what's your advice for date number one? Or how do you make love? This Dr. Mickler is a solid, sovereign adult. He's really seated in his own life and his own self. He doesn't need to ask Don Juan for behavioral tips and techniques. He just needs the infusion of the lover energy. And once he's got the lover energy again coursing through his veins, he emanates his very own way of flirting. This is why I call this video Deep Flirting. It's not about copying and pasting behavioral traits from another man, another lover, but it's about changing something in one's inner spirit so that your own natural expression comes through. I'll talk more about this in a minute, but what I want to say is that behavioral dating coaching or behavioral flirting coaching or even behavioral how to rekindle things with your wife coaching, which is 98% of what you're going to find. If you go in the YouTube box and type in Flirting 101, 99% of the videos are going to be behavioral. And that's basically me saying, as a coach, this is what I figured out. This is what works for me. These words, this intonation, go home and do it, and it's going to get you a result. And if it doesn't get you a result, keep practicing it until you kind of morph yourself into a carbon copy of me, and then you're gonna hopefully get results that I get. And I might get frustrated with you down the line as a coach if it doesn't work, because you ain't ever gonna be a carbon copy of me, right? Nor would you really want to, but you want to go the Dr. Mickler route of fleshing out your own expression. So I'm not gonna pan completely on behavioral coaching, because actually, if you come from a place like I did, or if you come from a place like some of the married men or men in long-term relationships that I'm working with, the flirting tap dries up to such an extent that just taking a few lines or a little routine or a cheeky little thing or borrowing something you got off another man might be enough to blow the flirting tap open and rekindle a sense of something with your partner. Or say if you're young and you're just looking for an edge to go to the Friday night bar or party or whatever and have 2 or 3 little tools in your arsenal, it can be good, that stuff, to open yourself up. And for sure I know many men's lives who have actually changed because they incorporated some of this behavioral coaching. The issue is that often it's a little bit robotic, it feels stilted to do. Often it puts us more in our heads because we're like, how is this going to be perceived? The woman feels it as a little inauthentic, or at least like the words that you're using don't match the energy that's going on in your body. So usually a lot of this behavioral coaching is just not going to work because you try and flirt, but it's not really in alignment, and a good woman can smell your bullshit, right? And even more to the point here, if you are under the surface kind of clogged up and a little bit stuck in emotional patterns or constrictive patterns in your body, if you try and do the behavioral kind of coaching, often these flirty remarks or these clever little lines and things that you would like to say, they actually do not come through because the body might freeze up so much that it becomes impossible for you to have the resources enough for you to flirt in this 101 way. And after that, a lot of men can really go into a spiral of shame and why am I not competent? Why can all these other guys do it? I'm even smart, I earn a lot of money, I'm a good-hearted man, and I see these assholes and they can flirt with ease and they get all the women. Wow, so that can really take a man into a deep, deep depression. And it's also really important to say that in a longer-term relationship, even though you might meet in a sunny moment of your life, and the first 1 or 2 years of your relationship feel like a honeymoon, you've just got the time, the space, the disposition, you're a little bit younger, you've got less responsibility, the lover archetype is just more in full bloom in this aspect of your life. You go a few years down the line, you put career, taking care of the house and mortgage payments, throw a couple of kids in the mix, and even if you were a really great embodiment of the lover in your early 20s, you start approaching your 40s and it gets squeezed dry. And often in that squeezing dry, we can revert also to deeper patterns in the relationship. And so if there is like a little traumatic pattern that gets triggered around reinitiating something with your wife, or perforating the film of your carefully constructed conventional weekly behavior, like you could really surprise your partner by stepping up the flirting, or you might introduce an energy that she might not like, or you might just feel somewhat afraid. And often we go into either a fawning kind of energy, we try and be too accommodating and nice, or we freeze, the body actually freezes, or there's the flight, which is, oh my God, the moment of flirting, I feel desire, I've seen something, I'm a little bit freaked out, and energy leaves the body. So if there's any kind of this trauma response, fawn, flight, or freeze, None of the Don Juan stuff that you learn, either from the movie or from one of the 10,000 online courses that you can get, is actually going to come out, and that can be a source of frustration. Now, of course, for you trauma experts out there, the one that I didn't talk about, of course, is fight. Fight is a trauma response. I think it's a little bit less common that you want to flirt, but you end up fighting with your partner. May happen. If it does, let me know. And also you can work on that in the following way. So let's get really into the deep embodiment part of it, right? And I started off by saying that flirting is a dancing between two bodies. You come into a room, and just the field of presence that you bring with you as you go into the room often is enough for some women in there to kind of straighten their back, to ruffle their hair, to do a little something. You walk into the room and your presence already creates an energetic response in her. And you'll look around the room and you might notice a woman undergoing a particular energetic response. And as she does that, it affects your attention as well. You might notice yourself become more present. You might notice your awareness become more wide, more vast. You might notice that you're looking at her, and wherever you go in the room, it's like you're checking her out. And when she notices you checking her out, she moves her body again, and if she likes the feeling of your presence from the other side of the room, she might start opening her body as a kind of invitation, which is if you want to approach, she tries to signal to you that it's easy and that's something that's wanted. And then you go over and you start a conversation. When the conversation starts, there is movement in it. And you know good flirting because there's teasing, there's back and forth. You might lean in, you might walk away, someone might whisper in the ear. There's all kinds of movements of the hair, pupils dilate, smiles get bigger, almost like this cloud of liking each other and attraction takes place. Now, seeing all of that, I didn't mention any of the words that you may say or any of the lines or like a routine that you might run because it is secondary. It's actually a very fixed, concrete, blocky, incoherent kind of thing to depict. What's really interesting is the way that two bodies move and dance of their own accord and of their own intelligence when people come together. Now, if you find that flirting is maybe rusty or blocky or awkward in your experience, that you might see this kind of thing happen, but either you freeze up or women freeze up in your presence a little bit, then even though the behavioral stuff might help you from time to time as a kind of crutch, oh yeah, I could say these things and see if it lightens things up, what actually is going to do the work long time is to go into your body, have a practice where you learn how to feel your body, and have a practice where you learn how to bring up these kind of trauma responses of freeze in particular, and the emotions that cause fawning or the fear of flirting that has you leave your body. It's to slowly come into your own body, feel a lot of that stuff, defreeze aspects of your body that freeze up with women, and start to allow that body to move and integrate. And a lot of men do retreats where they go into deep healing explorations. We also teach on the LOTM program ways that you can do, in particular, there's breath work, but in particular the non-linear movement that I teach is designed to really have you go in so you can unstick these things. Now, depending on the level of frozenness and stuckness that you have in your body, you might be able to move through significant stuff in a month or two, or it might take you a little bit longer, and you really need to get into some of the deeper layers of this. But the more you free yourself up from the stuckness on the inside out, the more you're able to come back into the moment. And yeah, a beautiful woman, for me, like after all these years of exploration, brings up a lot of energy and emotion in my body. And it's good that it does because I'm excited and I love it. I see a woman, I love the way she looks. Her energy lights me up and there's a rush in that. And I can feel a nervousness and an excitement rise in me. I'm glad that as the years go by, I still am kind of subject to my humanity in this level. But what I can do is breathe it, allow some of that energy to move through me. And it's the energy that then informs the things that I say or that I may do. And the more that I train to allow my body to be free, and the more I train myself to really drink in and adore and love the feminine spirit and the feminine energy, that energy moves me. So energetically, I'm a free body that's able to engage in the dance with the woman that I'm meeting. And then flirting starts from there. Yeah, I've got 40 years repository of little things, funny jokes. Most of the things that I say are spontaneous and entirely new. And again, it's the access to the lover archetype that I've been surrounded with. Just like Dr. Miklo with his Don Juan, I chose for a long number of years to surround myself with men who really understood women and flirted in a beautiful way. I watched a lot of movies, I've read books, I've listened to music, I've really doused myself in the lover. Yeah, reading good literature and poetry and traveling and seeing new things. All of these life experiences have contributed to opening my heart, my imagination, and my inspiration. And so that as my body is freed up, I can draw on these multiple sources of lover archetype and they come through me. And that's the key here. When you're dancing in the moment, so when you're flirting, let's say you're doing normal flirting 101 and you're layering on this behavior and this behavior and this behavior in a kind of sequence or strategy, then yeah, you're pulling levers and you're doing robotic things and you're moving through that kind of funnel of behavior. But if you're absolutely spontaneous and adaptable, then the only thing that you're cueing off is what she said last, or what she did last, or how she feels now. And you're also cueing off your own feeling, what you said last, or what you feel now, or what is on the emerging edge of the space between the two of you. And you go into this space where you're saying fresh things that are completely attuned to where she's at, that are completely attuned to her openness or a closeness or a level of skill or experience, a level of embodiment or a level of mind engagement. You feel into and say the perfect thing for her. And that unfolds. You continue the dance, responding exquisitely to the moment and then knowing exactly when and how to lead that in a different direction to where you want to go. How do you lead a woman exquisitely? Maybe this is a topic for another video, but it's like this. Whatever signals your body is bringing you and whatever signals her body is bringing you, you feel into that as a totality. You don't even need to engage your brain to decide what to do. Maybe you will a little bit, right? The emissary of the mind. Maybe you'll employ him to shuffle through a couple of options. But the bulk of the work is done by feeling yourself, feeling her, feeling the moment. And then boom, a sense of, yeah, it's the time to lead over here. Much as a tango dancer is not thinking about the spin he's about to take her through, he just senses a moment when that more advanced technique is possible, and then he leads her into doing it. And it's the same within our conversations. So this is the gift of doing the deep embodied work. It unlocks you, it unlocks the natural, dancing, intuitive, enjoying, pleasurable lover that lives in all of our bodies as a gift for you and for the women of the world. And what I'll do in the notes below is, first of all, there's a link to my LOTM, which is an Embodiment and Archetypes course that contains everything we talked about in this video and more for you to explore. But I'm also going to put a letterbox list of a number of films that I've recommended, that my colleague Zan has recommended over the years, that just give great exemplars of the lover archetype and different kinds of flirting and different kinds of male and female archetypes. And just watch some movies and drink them in. And as you do, maybe you will get a movie poster or get a movie image of some of the men that you really admire and stick it up in your room. Or you could even take one or two items of clothing that you see in lover spirits, like good flirts that you admire, and adorn yourself with them. I recommend not to go into a full wardrobe transformation, because often you get a new wardrobe based on a person that you idealize and want to become, rather than building a wardrobe gradually based on the person that you're actually becoming. But slowly but surely you adorn your life and you adorn things that are representative of the lover spirit that you want more of. And this kind of it's an archetypal exercise, this, and it opens your consciousness, it reminds you of the lover spirit, and it continually brings it forth. So in a point, go to other videos to learn the behaviors and the techniques. There are millions of them out there. There's no scarcity of flirting training. But if you want to go for the deep one, do the unsticking and unblocking. Allow the healing and the intuition and the emotional intelligence to arise through your body. Build a deep somatic intelligence. And from there, adorn your life with lover types, embodiments of the lover archetype that you really, really gravitate towards. And rather than imitate them, rather than write down what Don Juan said and then repeat it as a routine with every woman that you meet, even though it's really fun to do the knuckle exercise, allow a deeper form of intelligence to imbibe and then inform a more spontaneous expression within you. I hope that's been clear. Comment below if you have any further questions, and I certainly will follow up this video at some point later where I go more into the specifics of the non-verbal, highly felt, energetic, subcommunicated exchange of masculine-feminine flirting.